If Christian Gonzalez's injury is a long-term issue, we could be looking at some significant defensive changes. That's where we start on this episode of Locked On Patriots.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Patriots fans? I'm your host, Nick Cattles, born and raised in New England, also host of the Everything Pats podcast, co-host of the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cattles, and a sports talk show host veteran. On today's episode, Will Campbell is locked up in a heavyweight battle in the trenches, and a familiar face finally returns to practice and immediately makes a difference. But first, the Pats' lone all-pro limps off the practice field, leaving us with plenty of questions. We appreciate you joining the show, making us your first listen, for being an everydayer. The Locked On Patriots podcast, a proud partner of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. We did a breaking news podcast last night talking about Christian Gonzalez limping off the practice field due to a left leg injury. And that video on social media that I actually quote tweeted, you can check it out at Nick C Radio. The video leads us to believe that this is a hamstring injury. We talked about it on last night's pod. And this injury could end up leading to personnel changes on the defensive side and scheme changes on the defensive side of the football. Now, before we get to the possible changes that could develop due to this injury, of course, it all depends on how long Gonzalez is going to be out for. And as of right now, we don't know. We don't know if it's going to be a short-term injury. If it's a short-term injury, then obviously it will have less impact. If it's a short-term injury, the Patriots should be praying that Carlton Davis is back on the practice field ASAP. He's ready to contribute because then he could be your cornerback one. And you could kind of patch together cornerback two for as long as Gonzalez is out, because Davis could handle a lot of heavy lifting as long as he is actually healthy. So if it's a short-term deal, you hope that Davis comes back sooner rather than later. He's your answer at cornerback one. And then you have a trio of corners that you could utilize as the outside corner, and then, of course, the nickel back. What I would imagine the Patriots would do, if Davis is ready to go, Davis would slide into Gonzalez's spot. Alex Austin, who's first man up when your first two are down, Alex Austin would slide to what is supposed to be Davis's spot, opposite of Gonzalez. And then Marcus Jones fits perfectly right there at nickelback in the slot. Even though Mike Vrabel has talked about liking bigger corners in that slot nickelback position, Marcus Jones has been holding steady there. And it seems like this defensive staff is comfortable enough to deploy Marcus Jones in that role. So if it's a short-term situation with Gonzalez, it's much easier to deal with. It's much easier to figure out. Davis replaces Gonzalez. Austin replaces Davis. Marcus Jones stays exactly where he is. However, if it's a long-term issue, that's when it gets interesting. Would the Patriots, if this is a long-term injury to Gonzalez, would the Patriots entertain free agency? Would they dip their toe back into that pool, trying to find a veteran that could possibly help them in the secondary? Or do they like what they have? Do they think what they have in camp right now, even beyond the top 4 or 5 guys, is enough quality depth to not go into free agency? And if they go into free agency, who's out there? Who would make sense? Let's give you 5 names. 5 names, going to run through them. Number 1, Kendall Fuller is still available. Pro Football Focus last season gave him a 66.2 grade. That was 75th best overall amongst cornerbacks. He was 94th in coverage. James Bradbury is another name. He tore his Achilles, missed all of last season, was released by the Philadelphia Eagles. Probably unlikely. Here's a blast from the past, somewhat. How about Asante Samuel Jr.? You think Asante Samuel would love his son playing for the Patriots? I don't know if he would mind, because I think Samuel's bigger beef was with Belichick. But Asante Samuel Jr. is a name out there. Pro Football Focus last year gave him a 59.3 grade. That was 132nd overall. Yikes. He was 130th in coverage. Even if you don't put a lot into the Pro Football Focus grading system, I mean, the guy's 132nd overall, 130th in coverage. How bad could those PFF grades be? How bad could that system be? I mean, 130 is 130. Speaking of blasts from the past, Stephon Gilmore is still out there. PFF last year gave him a 63.9 grade, which was 93rd overall at the position, 118th in coverage. Not much better than Asante Samuel Jr. And then we have number 5, who might actually be number 1, and that's Rasul Douglas. But when you go by grades, Douglas finished with a 53.9 overall grade last year, which was hideous, 102nd out of 116 cornerbacks that qualified to be ranked overall or graded and ranked by PFF. But there's a caveat with Rasul Douglas and why he might be the guy if you're going to bring somebody in. PFF, same site that graded Douglas so low, actually picked him to be one of 7 veterans poised to have a bounce back. And this is what Zoltan Budaj wrote for Pro Football Focus. From 21 to 23, Douglas reestablished himself as one of the league's top cornerbacks. During that span, he ranked among the top 30 in PFF grade each season. His overall grade over those 3 years, from 2021 to 2023, ranked 10th at the position, while his coverage grade ranked 8th. He was literally a top 10 corner per PFF 3 years running before last year's disaster. He also allowed a passer rating of just 61.2, which was second best among 121 qualifying cornerbacks during that period. And Budaj writes, Douglas's recent track record and the fact that he turns just 30 at the start of the season make him a strong bounce-back candidate. So, would you be interested? I would be interested. I would absolutely be interested. Can't imagine it would hurt to bring in more competition if Gonzalez or maybe even Davis's injury is a long-term thing. I'd be open to it. But would those players be open to it? That's a bigger question for me. Would these guys, would Douglas, would Gilmore, would these veteran corners actually be interested in signing with a team like the Patriots if, A, they don't really know when Gonzalez and or Davis are going to be back, and when they come back, they're going to be relegated to the bench? B, the Patriots are coming off back-to-back 4-win seasons. And are these guys kind of more focused on winning football versus, just wanting playing time? We'll see. A couple of other things I want to talk about defensive scheme-wise. If you're going to lose Gonzalez for any stretch, any long period of time, not even with or without Davis, the pass rush needs to win. The pass rush needs to win. If one or both of your top corners are dinged up, it's even more critical for this pass rush to be much better than it was last year, because the corners, they help you. If you can't get rush quickly, these corners, they can cover and they can survive. But if you take Davis and or Gonzalez away from the equation, now your pass rush has to get home, and it's got to get home quickly. I'm talking about Chaisson. I'm talking about Keion White. I'm talking about Harold Landry. I'm even talking about the interior defensive linemen, Williams and Barmore. They need to get home and get home quickly. And another change you could see without Gonzalez and or Davis, mostly Gonzalez, is less physical press man coverage. The expectation is with Gonzalez and Davis, you're going to see a lot of man press physical play on the outside. That won't be the case if one or both of these cats are going to be out for the long term. So you're going to play a lot of different coverages. You're going to play more zone. It's also going to put more pressure on your safeties on the back end in coverage. Hello, Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers. Those guys have to be much more responsible and make sure that they have the correct assignments at the correct time. So it's just not, hey, how do you handle this at cornerback and who could replace the guys that are dinged up? It's the trickle-down domino effect of how it impacts everybody else, the pass rush, the safeties, everybody else. So we'll have to watch and see how this unfolds while we hope for good health. The latest on Will Campbell and how he fared in his first NFL padded practice. Next, as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You know, we've all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping, and that's where our friends Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. And if you're ever stuck wondering what your view actually looks like from the seat that you're about to purchase, the ticket you're about to buy, well, don't worry about that, because the Game Time app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are absolutely zero surprises. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Don't download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Before camp began, I was really looking forward to one specific matchup on the line, and that was Will Campbell versus Keion White, the number 4 overall pick in the draft, the guy that you're hoping can anchor this offensive line for the next decade, going against White, who is just full of potential, as we hope that he really hits his stride in year number 3 and takes that big-time leap. That matchup, very intriguing. I've talked about it multiple times in the past, talked about it leading into camp. And what we have, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, what we have during training camp right now is a heavyweight fight. That's what we've got, a heavyweight fight between Campbell and White. Phil Perry, NBC Sports Boston, wrote the following about Campbell versus White. Highlight of the one-on-one pass rush period. White bowls into Campbell and then rips him forward, knocking him off balance. Clean win for the third-year vet. White got Campbell on the ground earlier in the practice in a run-blocking period. Campbell stoned White in an 11-on-11 pass pro rep later. He also controlled White in a one-on-one run-blocking rep. Mike Reese, initial thought after practice, White versus Campbell is a battle. Greg Bedard on Campbell, losing that one-on-one versus White. It had nothing to do with his length. After getting a good initial punch on, the end ripped Campbell to the ground, a veteran move. Campbell was pretty good in the team periods, however. This is a battle. Loggerheads. This is man versus man. Footballer versus footballer. Trench guy versus trench guy. I don't know if that works. Some might say, well, Nick, I want to see Will Campbell dominate Keion White. I want to read that Will Campbell is having absolutely no issues whatsoever against Keion White, and I disagree. I don't want dominance. I want some give and take in this training camp relationship. Because if Will Campbell is dominating White, I'm concerned about White. If White is dominating Campbell, I'm concerned about Campbell. If this is one guy throws a haymaker, next guy throws a haymaker, and you've just got an exchange of just over-the-top haymakers from each dude, I feel better about that. I feel better about a back and forth. Let this be a battle. Let's see these guys compete. Let's have White win some. Let's have Campbell win some, so you can walk away and say, hey, we saw each guy get the best of the other guy. And that's going to bring the best out of both. That's the hope for me. I don't want to see Campbell walk over White or vice versa. Give me that give and take. For the rookie especially, I want to see Campbell get tested. I want to see a great test for Will Campbell to deal with. That's what I want to see. I want to see Campbell have to face some adversity. I want to see what happens at the first padded practice actually happen. I want to see Keion White rip Campbell and throw him to the ground. And then Campbell has to get up off his tuchus, get out there on 11-on-11s, and take care of business. And that's precisely what happened. So Campbell faced the adversity early in the practice, got up, dusted off, and battled with White. And won some of those battles after getting tossed to the ground. If there's any time to fail, it's practice. Fail at practice. Not the end of the world if you fail at practice. If you're failing during the games, if you're a turnstile and Drake May's getting pummeled, then we've got issues. But let me see this back and forth battle between two of your younger players that we hope both guys, by the end of this season, we're talking about being part of the future for a long time with this franchise. That's what I want to see. And the fact that Campbell improved during team drills says an awful lot about the young man. Not only does it tell us that physically he can stand up to adversity, physically he can get his butt handed to him, but he can respond and then actually give the butt whooping on the next couple of snaps. It also tells us that mentally he's tough. And when we talk about the NFL grind, when we talk about young players transitioning to the NFL, that top elite level, right? No better football than the NFL, as we know. NBA, you could possibly go to Europe and actually play for some better teams that are existing in the NBA. NFL's the NFL. That's it. We could talk about the UFL, but we know the NFL's the NFL. And it's a mental grind. You're going against very talented players, and they're going to get the best of you every once in a while. And it's how you react. It's how you respond to that. Do you give up? Do you tap out? Or do you fight back? And the fact that Campbell showed he didn't get down. He didn't get down on himself, especially when you talk about a left tackle. The last thing you want to see from your left tackle is him getting down and all of a sudden a series or two series fall off a cliff. Your quarterback takes unnecessary hits because your left tackle is sitting there playing mind games within himself. Mind playing tricks on me. What is it, Ghetto Boys? I think it is. You don't want that. You don't want to see it. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to feel it. Now, of course, with 11-on-11s, I also think Campbell it was better off because it's more of a phone booth kind of fight. If we're talking about heavyweight fight between White and Campbell, when you got 11-on-11, you got other dudes on the field. It's a little bit tighter, and you got a little bit more of that phone booth. So I love it. And Pat Kerwin, along with Jim Miller, was on Sirius XM, and pretty interesting. They were at the padded practice, and this was transcribed by Mike Reese. And Kerwin said, quote, "Forget the short arm thing," talking about Campbell, obviously. "He has the feet to overcome the arms. I watched him today. He gets into people. So if he's getting his hands in on the numbers, those are not short arms. It's when you reach in and can't get there, and the long arms that are coming at you prevent you. That's not what happened today." And this is similar to what Coach Scar told Phil Perry during the offseason when Perry had that meeting at Scar's house and they went over film. And Scar told Perry, look, you don't want guys reaching. It's all about getting your hands, getting that punch, getting inside of that jersey, making contact, and staying there and keeping your feet. That's what it's about. And that's what Kerwin's talking about here. And Jim Miller responded by saying, yeah, once he gets his hands on you, he is strong at the point of attack. That's what I saw from Will Campbell. Overall, a solid start for Campbell. I wouldn't say a great start from what I've read, what I've heard. Hasn't been an excellent start. He hasn't dominated camp. But the great thing is he should only get better. He's dealing with the NFL transition. I mean, this is his rookie camp. First day of padded practices, going against somebody who could be a bull, and that's White. Not the easiest task. He's learning the offensive system. He's learning his teammates. Oh, and by the way, he's only 21 years old. 21. He turned 21 in January. He could legally have his first drink, legally, at 21. back in January. Now, I don't know what LSU's doing, but I might have some thoughts. Evan Lazar wrote about Campbell after this padded practice. Here's what he wrote. Campbell had a great start to real football. He caved in the line of scrimmage on a down block, comboed up to the second level on another, generated movement on a front side reach, and stopped White with a firm punch on a play action touchdown. The power and finish were noticeable, with Campbell putting 2 teammates on the ground and 11 on 11s. So far, so good. He put 2 guys on their tuk-tuk during his first padded practice. Great. It's what I want to hear. I want to hear all the good reviews. And so far, it does seem like Campbell is holding his own. And if he's holding his own early, you could only hope it's going to get even better and even better than that as time goes on. A wide receiver returns while another continues to make plays. All that and more next as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back, baby. Fire up that group chat. Get them thumbs busy. Get your draft board ready and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions that you and I live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. Everybody's playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And I'll tell you, I've been around fantasy football for a long, long time. Yahoo Fantasy has been with me pretty much every step of the way. They've been around for 28 years. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned. Get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Behind the Gonzo news and the Campbell versus White fight, not literally, figuratively, behind those 2 stories, Jaylen Poke was actually the 3rd biggest story. Yeah, I said Jaylen Poke. I'm not going to have to fix my lips. It's true, as Kurt Angle would say. Jaylen Poke was out there for practice. The first padded practice, he was out there, and his return was the 3rd biggest story. And a couple of keys about Jaylen Poke's return. Number 1, this did not linger too long. I don't know what it was. I don't know what the injury was. All we heard was soft tissue. And, of course, we've talked about Mike Vrabel, not the biggest fan of soft tissue injuries, but Poke's back, and he did not allow this injury to linger too long. And to be back for day 1 of padded practices, that is a significant development for Jaylen Poke in his hopes to make the football team. I'm not telling you he's going to make the football team, but I can tell you it was going to be much, much tougher if he didn't get back, and if he didn't get back sooner rather than later. So Poke being out there, not letting this injury linger is big. He should be motivated. And for Poke, he needs to make an impact soon. He just can't be out there to be out there. You know, watching him run around with pads on, yay. I'm sure it'll get everybody excited. And I'm sure a lot of people will say, oh, yeah, look, oh, yeah. Great. Jaylen Poke, he's alive. He's breathing. He's out there. We see him. Maybe he threw a football to a kid. Maybe he signed an autograph. All of that is great. But he needs to make an impact. He needs to prove why he's an NFL receiver. After last season and that debacle, he needs to be out there consistently, and he needs to make an impact. He needs to make plays consistently. And at least for his first practice, his first padded practice, he did make an impact. Andrew Callahan posted, Poke, wide open TD catch from May in the tight red zone. Nice start to camp for him today. Evan Lazar, Poke on the board with a good play action fake leading to an open TD. Now, people might say, Nick, relax, will you? It's one play, dude. You getting excited because one play? The guy misses all the practices up until the first padded practice. He goes out there in the red zone and catches the touchdown, and now you're going to sit there and do cartwheels for this guy? No. Let's make sure we understand and appreciate the context of the situation. The first padded practice was a heavy, heavy run day. Patriots ran the football a ton. So there were not a lot of opportunities for the receivers to make plays. And the Patriots also were, settled on a pretty heavy rotation at the position. I think I read it was like somewhere around like 8 or 9 receivers with the first team shuffling guys in and out. So you had so many people involved and you were running a lot more than you were passing. So the opportunity for Polk to make a play, it wasn't, a huge opportunity. He didn't get a ton of chances. They were also working in the red zone. And as we know, red area, more difficult to make plays because the field's condensed, tighter area. So the fact that it was the red zone, the fact that it was a heavy, heavy run day, the fact that there were a number of receivers shuffling in and out, yeah, that's a good day for Jaylen Poke to come up with that touchdown. I'm not telling you it was a statement. I don't think Polk planted his flag and said, I'm making this football team because he caught the touchdown. But it was a good start. It was a good start to his camp after missing all of last week and the weekend due to whatever the soft tissue injury was. Meanwhile, Keion White continues to make his case at being the number 1 X receiver when camp breaks. Doug Kyde posted, Booty was 2-0 in one-on-ones versus Gonzalez. Mike Giardi posted, Booty did work on Gonzalez a couple times in one-on-ones and not with BS moves that you can't run in a game. Impressive. Greg Bedard, he had Booty on his quote-unquote up list for the first padded practice. He wrote, anytime you get the best of Gonzalez twice in one-on-ones, you're having a good day. Booty stringing together some good practices in the first week plus of this camp. And maybe we should take 24 more seriously. Maybe you took 24 more seriously than I did. Maybe that's my mistake. Maybe I need to sit here and say I'm sorry to Keion White and company. Maybe we should look back at last season and say, you know what? He made some plays. It wasn't great. It wasn't perfect. He wasn't efficient downfield, but he made some plays. And he has chemistry with the quarterback. He's in the circle of trust, so to speak, as Bobby De Niro would say back in the day. Now, what kind of impact will this have on the other receivers? I'm not sure. How much impact will this have on Matt Collins? Is Booty keeping the seat warm? Or was that the original plan for him to keep the seat warm? And now that he's showing up and impacting practice, are we going to have a little bit more of a battle than the staff might have initially thought? Kyle Williams, how much playing time is he going to get? Kyle Williams has been mostly on the outside playing that X. So it'll be a compelling watch all camp long at wide receiver. Meanwhile, defensively, Keion Chaisson, my favorite name on this team, he was good last week. He was good in the shorts and T-shirts. And you wondered, would that continue in the first day of padded practices? And the answer was yes. Mike Giardi called him a handful during this padded practice. Andrew Callahan sung Chaisson's praises on social media. He posted, Chaisson is off to an outstanding start in camp. Had him down for 2 sacks today. He's been the Pats' most productive pass rusher so far on a defense that's generated consistent pressure. Now, granted, Callahan writes only 5 practices in and facing a subpar offensive line. But White, Landry, Chaisson, all 3 of those guys have popped and popped consistently early in camp. And that's good. Pass rush. We talked about it. We talked about it earlier in the first segment. If your corners are dinged up and you might be in danger of not having Gonzalez and or Davis, you need that pass rush. So far, so good. Now for the offensive line, not so much. Leads me to my final point. Some right tackle questions. And only one padded practice, so we've got to judge this camp and everybody in this camp on the balance of work that they do. But so far, right tackle has been an issue. Morgan Moses continues to be mid. He's been completely mid from the beginning of this camp. We've discussed it. Mid-30s, coming off surgery. So we're going to give him time. It's still early. But Evan Lazar wrote, Moses rotated with DeMontre Jacobs at right tackle in the first 4 practices, but saw more reps on Monday, so Moses played more. The vet won his one-on-one versus Harold Landry, but was beaten around his edge by Chaisson in team drills. Moses deserves the benefit of the doubt as a 12-year pro. Totally agree with Evan. However, it's been an inconsistent start to camp for him. An inconsistent start to camp. Demontre Jacobs ain't much better. So you hope that Moses starts to figure it out here and starts to, get a little loose and look like the guy the Patriots were hoping they were bringing in. You hope this is just the surgery and maybe taking him a little bit to get loosened up, and then he figures it out. Again, benefit of the doubt, absolutely, for Morgan Moses. But if Moses doesn't work, man, you got Jacobs, big question mark. Wasn't good enough last year, obviously. Caden Wallace is obviously no longer an option at right tackle. He's playing exclusively at left guard. Maybe we're down to Jack Conley. So let's hope Morgan Moses works out. That wraps up this edition of Locked On Patriots. Reach out to me on Twitter at Nick C Radio. Don't forget to throw a comment in on the YouTube channel. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you for being an everydayer and making Locked On Patriots your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Bets. Lee Sterling, Kevin Rogers, they've got you there. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.